Hello, and welcome to the Trans Agenda, a podcast by TransClinique. I'm your host, Niko, and I'm a trans man, and my pronouns are he and they. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be right here talking about the Trans Agenda. In this podcast, we'll delve into the unique challenges and experiences of trans folks, highlighting the voices of those who have lived it themselves. We'll explore issues such as navigating medical and legal systems, finding acceptance within family and community, and combating discrimination and violence. Our guests will share their personal stories and expertise, providing valuable insights and perspectives on this often misunderstood aspect of the human experience. Join us as we strive to educate, inform, and advocate for trans rights and visibility. Hi, and welcome to the Trans Agenda. This is Gabby. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby Burgos-Colón. I go by they, them pronouns, and my role is special projects at the Transgender District.
So let me know, what does special projects kind of sounds like some secret agent shit? Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
It's very broad, I should say. It gives me a lot of liberty to create new projects and also expand our existing projects. You know, we have the Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program, which we just launched. And for the first time, we have 16 people that are part of the cohort, which is amazing. And so it's great because this has been one of our most successful programs, and we've been able to expand it from just 3 folks to 16. So we're very proud of that. And we have other programs like the Name and Gender Change Clinic, which we also expanded. At first, we only did Alameda and San Francisco County. Now we do every county within the Bay Area.
Wow.
Yeah. And we also have extended that program to trans youth, which is perfectly aligned with what's been going on in the country. We want to make sure that all trans people of all ages are able to access affirming documentation.
So tell me a little bit more, like, what is your day-to-day at the Transgender District?
Well, I guess I wake up, I walk to work, so I live in the north part of the TL. I guess the expats call it Tender Knob.
Okay.
But North Tenderloin, and so I walk to the TL and through the TL and basically start my day with emails, responding to press inquiries, and also a lot of community members reach out to us specifically needing support with access to housing or just general services. And the Transgender District itself is a hub for a cultural hub for that not only works with preserving and protecting our trans history, but also we do a lot of referrals to other organizations. Personally, with my roles, I am a true believer in collaboration. The transgender serving communities are extremely underfunded. We basically get scraps from city funding, and I've noticed that there's this opportunity to kind of like communicate with each other and really like maximize each other's services so that we can not only keep each other relevant, but make sure that everyone in the community is being serviced. So, whether it's Parivar, whether it's Lion Martin, whether it's our trans home, TGIJP, we definitely make sure that the folks that come in through our door have access to services.
Somewhere, yeah. And I'm not one to beat around the bush, and working in a nonprofit as an activist, right? It's kind of a thing. You're gonna get not 100% of what you want, and we've talked a little bit about what that's like being an activist working in the nonprofit world, and how I don't know if you could explain to folks Like, how does the funding work? Like, how do nonprofits get funded? And, like, why is it such, like, a crabs in the barrel situation, you know, where people are fighting over funding?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We, as nonprofits, receive certain funding or grants, depending on which organization you are, through the city. So, of course, ourselves being a cultural district, we do have the cultural district funding, which a lot of it goes towards cultural preservation and beautification of the neighborhood. And then you do get certain grants, like, for instance, we work with the Office of Economic Workforce Development, who funds the Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program. Right. So they're very niche sources of funding from the city that help us. Of course, we also have the Guaranteed Income Pilot Program, which is the first of its kind in the country. We had $1 million allocated to us. Well, not us, the district, I guess the program itself, we should say. And we work in collaboration with Lion Martin and Office of Transgender Initiatives, which is a city department. And we were able to provide the guaranteed income, I believe was like $1,200 to 55 participants of our most marginalized groups. And, you know, that number is really small when you think about how many trans and non-binary people live in San Francisco.
And need services,
And need services because, I mean, our community definitely has the hardest time accessing resources. And we, of course, have all these great organizations that provide these resources. But again, we are all very limited and serve kind of like at the mercy of the city funding to be able to achieve that. Right. And so a lot of the extra funding that we do is through private funding. You know, that's why we're always asking for sponsorship, donations, anything from folks and our allies that are able and willing to give us funds so that we can continue our work. That's how we're able to expand these programs. But being that we're in a recession and just the general climate around trans rights and the lack of sense of urgency has made it a little bit difficult, I feel, for everyone to be able to get as much support as we did back maybe 2-3 years ago when we were at the height of the, I guess, racial awakening of America.
Have you hit up Bud Light?
They want to give us coins, but no.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, and that's a lot of the work that I do too, is trying to find money where there's no money, you know, and you're just basically Frankensteining together a plan so that we can service our community. For me, it's the arts. For you, it's services. And I think a lot of the time people feel like, oh, we have to pick, you know, and we can only support one. And the reality is this isn't a thing created by us, right? Like, all of these things should be happening. It's just the scarcity mindset that we are forced to kind of live in. I wonder, though, do you have any kind of like big idea solutions for the future of how to get us out of this, you know, scarcity mindset against each other?
It's funny that you say that you mentioned scarcity mindset against each other, because I think that you know, there's a saying that you make when life gives you lemon, you make lemonade. The reality is that in a world where there is no sense of urgency or desire to prioritize our lives as trans people, and we're basically told that we need to work with what we're given and make it work, I think that it is important to do basically what I've been focusing on since I started back at the district, which is just assessing where the thing about funding is that we do not have control over that. You know, like, there's no real control about how how much is allocated. It's just like there's this amount that's set towards transgender services, and that gets divided amongst the organizations according to, of course, healthcare services get priority because that is of the most important need, and then so those direct services, and then like so on and so forth. But then like, so once that is already allocated and ready to go, so what are the services that are provided by each organization, right? How can we build a coalition or a group within our trans-serving organizations and our leaders? And I'm not just talking like, executive directors of organizations. I'm talking a combination of community activists that are independently
doing their thing,
acting,
act
independently, or and also organizations. Of course, if we have allies within city departments, I would love to have them included as well. But how can we maximize all of these programming within the current scope that we have in our current budgeting structure, so that we can ensure that there is trans visibility and inclusion in all of these programs?
Yeah.
For instance, I know that there's a program within the Human Services Department that actually provides training and city jobs while they do this training. So, with city jobs, you get benefits, you get pensions, all these things, and it leads to a stable income. Yeah. Why don't we have more trans people there?
Right.
So all these things that it just takes a quick meeting, a quick phone call. Just those are just a few things that I've been working on, just assessing these opportunities, seeing these little pockets that have growth opportunity, and turn it into something that can eventually help our entire community.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not a fast process. So.
No, it's, and something I've been thinking a lot about, right, is we take care of each other in our community to a degree. We do the best that we can. But sometimes it does feel like passing around the same $5, and at a certain point, we do kind of need to import money, services, jobs from the general population. I've spent my entire transition basically trying to only talk to trans people. And I think I've been pretty successful in that. And of course it's a privilege living here in San Francisco, but the reality of the situation is that's not realistic if we want to move forward. Like, we have to kind of get into the larger body of the world. And right now that's not safe. So part of the work that you do is making that safe. So thank you for doing that work.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you brought up that point about the passing around of the same $5, because if there was I believe it was Niko from Ella that she said something in a panel that really like stuck to me, and it has stayed for a while now, that there's nobody that's going to come and save us but ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely true. If you look at all of our rallies, all of our movements that are specifically trans focused, the people that show up are our community. That is why we are considered brave, strong, resilient, sickening, amazing, all these like things that are true, of course. But again, what people fail to realize is that these stem from that need of survival, that constant survival mode of like, if we don't do this, then nobody's going to do this for us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And, we've asked and low-key begged, high-key, for support from like allyship, which we've received, and from support from, but then also that really plays into like the role that each of us individually have. So we all have our different networks some of us are much more internal within the community, but for those of us that do have networks outside of the trans community, let's utilize that network. Like, how can we like leverage these people? How can we educate them and like give them a sense of knowledge so that they are aware of the experience that we go through every day?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes like a little bit of different perspective from people, because especially in a world like today that is so individualized and social media focused, it's very, like, we live in an algorithm world, like the Matrix, actually. So it's like, how do we get these people out of that and show them like a new perspective? I think that that's how you can get that sense of like that aha moment that a lot of people are missing, to be like, oh, this is the value in me standing up for trans rights. And it seems so trivial to us because, hello,
it's our life.
It's our life. Yeah, you should be doing this.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's not the truth for a lot of people. But
quite frankly, I'm very, just everything that's been going on this year even, but before that, I'm very disappointed in our allies. They're not really, what are they? Hello?
You know, I wonder, yes, I wonder how many, there's this whole concept of performative action.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great to show up and wave a flag and shout, and really the real work that is done is always behind the scenes. It's always when you feel most uncomfortable and when it's the least convenient to you.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And I feel that the lack of convenience or comfortability is what puts people off. But we already know this because we have no choice. Yeah. We are put in this position that we have to continue to push on, even though that we're exhausted or burnt out or whatever it is, or just trying to survive and get basic necessities and still give those last $10 that we have to someone that has it worse than us. It's crazy to me that this is still something that I struggle to come to terms with, that people don't see that. But then again, I feel like as community leaders, we have a duty to be that voice of communication and really tap into other networks and step outside of our comfort zones in a way to bring other folks together and let them know why it's important for us to be prioritized.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not all on the allies, I feel like a lot of people get into positions of power for various reasons, right? But being a community leader at its heart is a responsibility.
Yeah.
To do what's best, not just for you personally, but for the greater whole, And I realized that in terms of allyship, we could do more with calling them out. For sure. I mean, there's definitely many opportunities for that. And I often wonder why that doesn't happen. I feel like we've been trying to keep it a little bit... keep the peace.
Yeah, trying to keep the peace, trying to not be the stereotype of
angry trans person.
Every trans person of whatever. I'm not even going to say entertain it. But it's really getting to the point that there's nothing coming out of this. So if we need to get loud, if we need to get sassy, if that's what they need, then...
I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes when I talk to cis people, they really think that I have a very stronger opinion than I actually have. They very much put me in this box of woke warrior, whatever, which of course I do my best to respect everybody, but I'm not necessarily a contrarian as they kind of assign to me. And so honestly, usually when I talk to cis people, it's a very unfulfilling, not all we love, there are some allies that, and who you are, that are amazing and show up for us. But, there's also people who...
And, yes, I agree, 100%. I have had both experiences. Great conversations, and also, really talking to a wall, nowhere to go type of conversations. I've had to do a lot of personal work on myself too, and I've realized that there is a power in where you put your energy and who you put your energy in.
Yeah.
So maybe what we need to do is, and hot take moment, is just focus on these people that actually like are showing up and doing the care, and use them as a vessel of communication. Because the reality is that our experience, I feel like everyone's experience as a trans person when they're having conversations with non-trans people is different. Because of course you have the immediate like trans label, and then you also have the racial biases, you have economic background biases, all these different layers that create prejudice. And I think that kind of like impedes having like a real conversation where you're taken seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's something that as trans people we struggle with all the time, being taken seriously.
For real. Well, I could talk to you forever, but I do, before we kind of wrap up here, I do want to know, like, what is your story personally? Like, we've talked a lot about the macro, but I think it's really important for us as trans people and not just talk about community issues, but actually you as an individual. Like, who are you? Who's Gabby?
Well, I'm a Libra sun.
Really?
Gemini moon, and Aquarius rising. So I'm literally an airhead.
I'm a Libra too.
But aside from that, I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Lived there for 18 years. Moved to New Orleans, and basically that's where my whole activism and legislative work started. It's funny, it actually started when I was working retail for Lush. That's when I became a little activist, and was marching the streets and started creating my network. And then got into City Hall. I was actually the first trans person to ever work for the New Orleans City Council, which was incredible and actually quite pat on the back moment for me, that I was able to achieve that. I feel like that's when I kind of came into like my internal acceptance and true power of and saw the true power of transness. I feel like we all go through this process of like self-loathing and hate for a long time. That was at 26 or something like that, so it's fairly recent. And then I came here to San Francisco, guns blazing, trying to really like dive into the nonprofit world and the political sector, and that's when I started getting involved with the Transgender District. And I also managed Honey Mahogany's campaign, which would have been a historic campaign. It was historic, but it would have been much more historic if she would have won as the first trans supervisor ever. It's 2023. Let that sink in.
Right.
And we don't have that representation, which is actually part of the problem.
Sure.
But sorry. But anyways,
don't apologize.
That was kind of that's my story in a nutshell. I'm just here in San Francisco, which has been a mecca for trans liberation, and I am so happy to be here and join the fight, because it feels like it's creeping in on us, and it's a time to kind of push back and make sure that we claim the space that we've always had.
So, the question I like to ask everybody, what is your trans agenda?
My trans agenda is to make sure that we get trans representation in the decision-making process, so that we elect more trans and non-binary people within the Bay Area and nationwide, and that we actually stick to our city goals of ending trans homelessness and finding long-term sustainable solutions where trans people are no longer living in that scarcity mindset, where we are actually thriving. because that is what this city was built for, and that is what the city projects itself as, a sanctuary.
Yeah.
So let this be a sanctuary for thriving trans people.
Abundance
For all. That's what you get this year. 2023.
Exactly.
Year of abundance.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Me too.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I am super happy. Thank you for having me.
Trans individuals face unique challenges every day. From accessing healthcare to navigating legal systems, it is crucial that we work towards creating a society that is inclusive and supportive of people of all gender identities. This means advocating for policies and practices that prioritize the health and well-being of trans individuals, as well as challenging discriminatory attitudes and behaviors where they exist. By coming together to support and uplift trans voices, we can create a brighter and more equitable future for everyone. Thank you for listening, and let us continue to work towards a world where trans individuals can thrive. Follow us on all social media platforms @TransClinique, and don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button.